Hey everybody, this is CIT 12. It is week 9, and that means that the semester is exactly halfway done. Now this topic is a little depressing, and it honestly doesn't apply to the vast majority of you. Scores in this class are very, very good. And so for most of you, don't worry about this, but for some of you, I would be remiss in my duties if I did not mention that week 9 is the last week to drop. Specifically, Friday is the last day to drop. So if you have any class, this class or another class that you want to drop, you have to do it by Friday. After Friday, you are stuck in your classes. It doesn't matter what happens, with the exception of some very, very extreme situations. You will simply get the grade that you get according to the syllabi at the end of the semester. So anyway, Friday, if you want to drop this class, be sure you drop by Friday. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you to the end of the semester. And like I said, for the vast majority of you, you're doing incredible in this class. Why would you want to drop it? Our chapter for this week is one of those small weird chapters right after chapter 5 called Tech and Focus. So it's just a small section on ethics, and it's going to feel a little bit out of place, and that's because that section actually starts with the sort of foundations of ethics and ethical decision making, right? Which is going to seem a little odd for a technology course, but then they spin it into the application, which is looking at sort of situations that technology has caused to arise and how we respond to them and how should we choose to live our lives and what kind of society do we want to create for ourselves. Ethics and technology go together, and they have to go together, and that's partially because technology allows us to do so many more things than we were able to before, that now we need to start making some decisions about how do we want to construct our society, and what of all these new things that we can do should we allow ourselves to do, right? Just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should do it. And so you'll see in the lecture video and in the chapter discussions of Edward Snowden and piracy and all sorts of interesting, trade-offs between security and privacy, or sort of what benefits you and what benefits society as a whole. All of that is great sort of ethical decision making, and it's really important for people who are going to be tech savvy, that you have to make these decisions for yourself. But in addition to that, one of the things we don't bring up, and it's because it's brand new and it is an ongoing story, is this situation with the FBI and Apple. And it is a really interesting question to sort of ask yourself as you're looking through the chapter. And so even though they don't discuss this issue, because this issue is only a few weeks old, think about that as you're sort of reading and watching the lecture video, and sort of try to apply those ideas to how you feel about the FBI and Apple. The idea, if you're not aware, the FBI has an iPhone that was owned by one of the terrorists from the San Bernardino shootings. And so, we'd like to know what's on that phone. And of course they can't get onto the phone because the phone has a password and the iPhone has a lot of security measures. And so the FBI is asking Apple to create something that doesn't exist or hasn't existed before, a version of the operating system with a backdoor, essentially a way in to break into an iPhone. Apple doesn't want to do that because in doing so they would be giving the FBI the ability to essentially hack any iPhone, regardless of who owns it. And so because of that, they've sort of fought it, and we don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, it's probably going to end up being in the court system for a while, and will eventually probably I hope it work its way up to our Supreme Court, since that is the group that we've sort of decided in our society gets to decide these sorts of issues of privacy. Regardless, we get to express our feelings on this and talk to our congressmen about passing laws or whatever, talk to our friends and sort of begin that conversation. And so it's important that we kind of know where we're coming from with this. So point being, take a look at the ethics chapter, take a look at the lecture video, and start asking yourself maybe some questions about, should Apple have to create this tool to hack iPhones for the FBI, supposedly for this situation, but it could be for any situation, or should they not have to? Should it be okay for us to create devices that no one can get into, that are actually private? Privacy versus security. That is a trade-off question that I think we're going to be asking ourselves a lot in the future. All right, now your discussion for this week is going to be a little bit more lighthearted, and it's also going to be incredibly practical. What I want you to do is take a class that you think you might be registering for next semester. You should be registering for classes here pretty soon. We're already halfway through the semester. And so pick a class, and I want you to do some research on it using two different sources of information. One is an official source of information. I want you to go to the Institutional Research website for State Center Community College District. And there's links in the folder. When you go there, you'll see, well, a lot of really confusing links. And that's why I have a video showing you how to use both of these sources. But you'll eventually be able to get to a place where you can find all sorts of official numbers on the class you're thinking about taking. If you want to take astronomy or Spanish or some other course, right? You can take a look at that site and get information on pass rates. How many people successfully complete the course? How many, what's the average grade given in that course? All sorts of information, right? Really, really practical information about a course. And it can really help you make a decision about, let's say I've got two classes in the same area for my transfer that kind of meet the same requirement. I'm not sure, should I take anthropology or should I take some other course that meets the same requirement? Well, this might tell you which one is at least easier, or which one has a higher pass rate, or which one tends to give out better grades, that sort of stuff. Now, it doesn't necessarily talk about interest. If you're really interested in anthropology, it doesn't matter what the average grade is, because your grade will probably be higher because you're interested in the subject. So anyway, an official source of information, kind of hard to use, but you get accurate data, but you don't necessarily get all the data that you want. You don't get a full picture. For instance, you can't actually look at individual instructors. You just can look at courses. That's all we're required to give, and so that's all we do give. Now, at the same time, there are crowdsourced forms of information, right? And so that's the second side I want you to take a look at. It's called Rate My Professor. You probably already used it. If you haven't, well then, I'm about to change your life. And essentially, it's a place where students can go in and write reviews of their professors, right, or instructors in the case of Fresno City College. And you can take a look at the course that you're thinking about, taking, and actually get information on that specific instructor. That Rate My Professors can actually help you say, hey, I need to take English 1A. I don't really have a choice, so it doesn't matter what the pass rate is. I have to take it, but who should I take it with? And that can be really valuable bits of information. You might be able to get some insight about a professor by the reviews written by fellow students. And it's crowdsourced information. Now, some people will say that crowdsourced information is completely inaccurate and terrible. But as it turns out, that's not true. And there's a lot of research being done on the wisdom of the crowd and the wisdom of the herd and all this sort of stuff. But what it essentially means is that when you have very few reviews, if you see somebody in the single digits for reviews, that information is not very accurate, right? You can't really trust it. If they're great reviews, poor reviews, it doesn't really matter, right? If there's just a few bad reviews, it may just mean that there's some people who are really upset about a particular incident and were motivated to write. You see just a few really good reviews, who knows, maybe their family members or friends took their course and just wrote a review, right? You can't really determine anything from just 7 or 8 reviews. But if you see a lot of reviews, right, a large number, and they're all saying the same thing, well, you can begin to trust that information. That ends up being really good information. And it's not just professors. I mean, I'm having you investigate professors, but there's crowdsourced information all over the place. If you go onto Yelp and you want to just find, a great burger in Fresno, you can look at reviews. And if you see a place that has 4 great reviews, well, don't trust that. That just means that there are 4 relatives who ate burgers at that place. If you see 4 terrible reviews, I wouldn't trust that either. But if you see 50 good reviews, 100 good reviews, 200 good reviews, there's no way 200 people can be wrong about how good a burger is, right? So the more information you have, the more people who've made reviews, the more accurate that information. And so I want you to look at both. An official source of information that's a little hard to use and doesn't quite give you all the information you want, but at least you hope that that information is accurate. And a crowdsourced bit of information. You can compare the two. And of course, when I say compare the two, I don't mean to say which is better, but talk about how are these two different? Like, in what situations is one better than the other? because they both have their uses, right? There's no reason you shouldn't look at all the information when making a decision. By the way, and I hope this isn't the case all week, the Fresno City College institutional research site often goes down. And so if that's the case and it's not available this week, don't worry about it. You can see some of that information from the video. Hopefully you'll be able to talk about it a little bit. And if you can't get to it, you just can't get to it. And you can just do your response on the Rate My Professor site. I just checked it a moment ago and it was down. It comes up, goes down. I don't know exactly what's going on, but needless to say, if it's not available, don't worry about it. Just you have an idea, hopefully from the video, on how to use the two of what it would give you, but you can just do your research for your class using the Rate My Professor site, which I'm 99% sure will be up. All right, and your lab for this week is Excel Lab 3. It's our last lab in Excel, so that means next week is our practical on Excel. More on that next week. But for this week, Excel Lab 3 isn't so much about the calculations of things anymore. That was in Labs 1 and 2. In Lab 3, they really focus on the presentation of those results. Excel is used to create all sorts of charts and graphs that you can use to explain your position to other people. It's great to be able to determine how profits have changed relative to, let's say, a new line of products that you've produced, right? But what you need to be able to do is to convince other people that this line of products has been a success and maybe needs to be expanded, right? You need to tell a story, and you need to use numbers to help you tell that story. And so Excel has a lot of tools in order to help you present the information, present the numbers that you've been given. And so most of the lab is dealing with charts and graphs. The ability to create pie charts, line charts, things that can help you to explain to others and show to others very, very quickly how something has happened, right? Profit at this store has increased by 20% over the last year, and that's a great sign that the manager we put in place is doing a great job. Who knows what the story it is you're trying to tell, but numbers aren't just about sitting on a page doing nothing, right? They can be used to tell stories, they can be used to explain to others and convince them of something. And you can say a lot with a very simple graph. People can look at it and instantly know whether things are getting better or whether things are getting worse. You can also lie with a graph, but that's another lesson for another day and probably taught in a different class. At the very least, we wanted to be able to tell you how to present information. And that's what Lab 3 is all about, charts and graphs. Now you will also see some tools for what-if analysis, but again, that what-if analysis doesn't only inform you, it's also something that you can express to others. And so Excel Lab 3, primarily focusing on the explanation, the telling of a story with the numbers you've created and the information you've generated using Excel. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, brian.baker@fresnocitycollege.edu. And as always, I will see you online.